Hello everyone, and welcome back to Silent Dale's Dark Tales. Today, we're heading to one of the best preserved medieval castles in England, Skipton Castle. A fortress with over 900 years of history, countless battles, and one ghost story that refuses to fade. This episode begins with the landscape around Skipton, moves through the castle's long and dramatic past, and ends with the tale of its most famous spirit, the mysterious Grey Lady. Skipton and the surrounding dales. Skipton sits at the gateway to the Yorkshire Dales, a landscape of rolling hills, dry stone walls, and sweeping valleys. The town's name comes from Sheep Town, and even today, the surrounding fields are dotted with flocks. The River Aire runs through the town, and the Leeds-Liverpool Canal cuts a calm line through its centre. Skipton is lively, historic, and full of character, a market town with centuries of stories woven into its streets. And rising above it all is Skipton Castle, solid, imposing, and almost untouched by time. The castle, a brief history. Skipton Castle was built around 1090 by Robert de Romilly, a Norman baron. Its purpose was simple: defend the region from Scottish raids and secure Norman control over the Dales. Long before Skipton Castle stood as a stone guardian over the Dales, Yorkshire endured one of the darkest chapters in its history, the harrying of the North. In the winter of 1069 to 1070, William the Conqueror launched a brutal campaign to crush resistance in northern England. Villages were burned, crops destroyed, and entire communities left to starve. The devastation was so severe that some areas took generations to recover. This scorched earth policy reshaped the region, clearing the way for Norman control and the construction of new fortifications, including the early foundations of Skipton Castle. The harrying left scars on the land and its people, and its shadow still lingers in Yorkshire's collective memory. If you want to explore this event further, you can look into the harrying of the North, but for now, it's back to the castle. Over the centuries, the castle grew stronger, thicker walls, deeper ditches, and a gatehouse designed to intimidate anyone approaching. But Skipton Castle's most dramatic chapter came during the English Civil War. The Civil War siege. In the 1640s, Skipton Castle was held by the Royalists, loyal to King Charles I. It became one of the last Royalist strongholds in the north, refusing to surrender even as other castles fell. For 3 years, parliamentarian forces besieged Skipton. Gunfire echoed across the valley. Supplies ran low, and the people inside endured hunger, cold, and constant fear. The castle finally surrendered in 1645, but its walls were so strong that Parliament ordered them to be slighted, damaged to prevent future military use. Lady Anne Clifford, the castle's formidable owner, repaired the damage and planted the famous yew tree in the courtyard to mark the castle's endurance. Key events in Skipton Castle's history. Here are some of the castle's most significant moments. Norman Foundation, 1090, built to secure the Dales. Clifford family ownership, 1310 onwards, centuries of influence. Scottish raids, the castle defended the region repeatedly. Civil War siege, 1642 to 1645, one of the longest in the north. Lady Anne Clifford's restoration, preserving the castle for future generations. Modern era, Skipton Castle becomes one of Britain's best preserved medieval fortresses. But history isn't the only thing that lingers within these walls. Some say the castle is home to a ghost, a woman who wanders the corridors in silence. The Grey Lady. Skipton Castle's most famous ghost is known simply as the Grey Lady. I often wonder why so many of our old buildings are linked to a Grey Lady. Is it social contagion or something more? Visitors describe her as a pale, quiet figure dressed in grey, drifting through the corridors, appearing near staircases, and sometimes seen in the old private apartments. She is said to move slowly, almost gracefully, and never speaks. So who is she? Theories about the Grey Lady. There are several possibilities. Was she a member of the Clifford family? Perhaps a woman who died far too young. A servant, someone who lived and worked in the castle centuries ago. A victim of the Civil War siege, one of the many who suffered during the long conflict. A nun or religious woman, suggested by her grey clothing. Nobody will ever know for sure, but the sightings continue. Where she is most often seen. Reports of the Grey Lady tend to cluster in a few specific areas. The chapel, a quiet, atmospheric room where visitors report a feeling of being watched. The staircase tower, where people have seen a figure ascending or descending silently. The Tudor wing, especially near the old bedrooms. The corridor by the banqueting hall, where footsteps are sometimes heard with no one present. Staff have reported strange sounds, sudden cold spots, and the feeling of someone passing behind them. Visitors have described seeing a woman who vanishes when approached. A well-known sighting, one of the most repeated stories comes from a visitor who claimed to see a woman in grey walking ahead of them in the corridor. They assumed she was part of a tour group, until she turned a corner and disappeared. When they followed, the corridor was empty. Another visitor described seeing a woman standing near the chapel door, hands clasped, head bowed. When they looked again, she was gone. Whether these are tricks of the light, imagination, or something more, the Grey Lady remains part of Skipton Castle's identity. Why her story endures. Ghost stories often survive because they fit the place they inhabit. Skipton Castle is ancient, atmospheric, and filled with centuries of human experience, joy, grief, conflict, and quiet domestic life. The Grey Lady feels like a remnant of that past. Perhaps the stone tape theory could be genuine, a symbol of the people who lived, worked, and suffered within the castle walls. Her story endures because it adds a human layer to the stone and history. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Silent Dales, Dark Tales. If you found this interesting, please consider subscribing. There are many more forgotten tales waiting to be uncovered. Until next time, stay safe, and keep wandering the Silent Dales, where dark tales linger.